State, any additional witnesses?
Please. State calls Ethan Barillo.
All right. Good afternoon.
Witness sworn to testify truthfully.
I do.
All right. Thank you. Have a seat and state whenever you are ready.
Ethan Barillo, a witness herein, being first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. Direct examination by Miss Babcock's Poole.
Please state your name for the record.
Ethan Barillo.
Thank you. And were you a detective with the Belvedere Police Department on May 18, 2021?
Yes.
And do you recall that day?
Yes.
And do you know where you were located at approximately 11:53?
I was at the post office.
Okay. And what brought you to the post office?
So, I was driving in the area and there was a report that came out over the radio, and I was in the area, so I decided to go over to assist.
Okay. When you got to the post office, what did you see?
When I got there was an officer inside the post office talking with a couple people.
Do you know who that was? Or could you see at that time who it was inside the post office?
The officer?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it was Officer Brox.
Okay. So, yeah, I knew that they were talking inside. They were on their way out, and then I was walking into the post office when that was occurring. Okay. Why were you walking in?
So at that time I believe it was just me and her on the scene, so.
Okay.
Since she was talking to them, I was going to go talk with the post office employees to get more information.
Okay. So you were going to further investigate.
Yes.
While she dealt with the immediate concern.
Correct.
Did you make it all the way into the post office itself?
I don't recall if I actually opened up the second door, but I was in the entryway.
Okay. And then what did you see?
I heard arguing outside from where I came from, so I turned around and I started walking outside.
Okay. And then what happened?
When I got outside, I saw that an Officer Brox was going to arrest a male. At that time I don't know exactly, but I believe both Officer Brox and Officer Reese had either side his arms.
Okay.
And I saw the male break free of the right arm,
Okay.
which he was holding a phone. At that time I went over to re-engage his right arm, and while I was doing that, he was handing the phone to a female that was in the right by him as well.
Okay. And just to be clear, who was the individual that was being placed under arrest?
Subject wearing the blue shirt.
Okay.
All right. Record will reflect the in-court identification of Mr. Wigginton.
I Miss Babcock's Poole.
And so, you observed him pull away from both officers.
Yeah, so at first it was Officer Brox was grabbing his left side, so left arm. Normally, because I've seen many people get arrested, normally when they make contact, the officer they go right around and put their hand behind their back. This one I saw that.
Judge, I object based on the narrative.
I don't think he's gotten to a narrative point yet. I'll overrule the objection, so you can continue answering the question.
Just what I observed?
I Miss Babcock's Poole.
Yes, please.
Okay. I observed there was so, what I was saying before is normally when I see somebody getting handcuffed, once the officer makes contact, they normally put their hands behind their back so we can place handcuffs on. This time I noticed that his arm wasn't behind his back and it was in front of him. I thought that was him resisting, and then for the right side, with Officer Reese, I actually observed him pulling his arm away from Officer Reese to give the phone to the female, and that's when I re-engaged with the right arm, and I believe Officer Reese maybe walked behind me.
Okay. So you engaged then because of the free arm.
Correct.
And that was worrisome to you.
Correct.
Okay. And do you know all those events to have occurred in Boone County?
Yes.
No additional questions, Your Honor.
Attorney Jenks, any questions?
Re-cross-examination by Mr. Jenks.
Who was the first one to make contact out of the officers with the defendant?
I guess what type of contact? Like, the arresting.
Physical contact.
I wouldn't know.
In relation to the arrest outside, which officer was the first to engage the defendant?
I believe it was Officer Brox.
Okay. If I can have 1 second, Judge. I have no further questions, Judge.
Okay. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. State, any additional witnesses?
No, Your Honor. State rests.
Okay. At this time, the state has rested. Attorney Jenks?
Judge, I'm going to call my client, Richard Wigginton, to the stand.
Mr. Wigginton, actually, if you wanted to come on up, and then I just have some questions for you.
Okay. All right. I'm going to swear you in. Yes.
Okay.
Defendant sworn to testify truthfully.
Watch your step. Now, before I have your attorney inquire, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Do you understand that as the defendant in the case you have a right to choose whether to testify or not testify? So a lot of things in a criminal case boil down to legal strategy, trial strategy, what witnesses to call, what questions to ask, things of that nature that up to your attorney, of course, with your input and consultation. One decision that is yours and yours alone is whether you want to testify or not testify. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You can certainly talk to your attorney about that and get his advice, but ultimately it's your decision and you are presumed innocent, so you're not required to testify or say anything or do anything, and that will not be held against you. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to discuss with your attorney whether or not you'd like to testify or not today?
Yes, I have.
And is it? I know it sounds silly now that you're up on the witness stand, but is it your decision then, Mr. Wigginton, to testify?
Yes, it is.
Okay, very good. Attorney Jenks, you may inquire.
Thank you.
Richard Wigginton, the defendant herein being first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. Direct examination by Mr. Jenks.
Can you state your name for the record?
Richard Wigginton.
Do you remember the events of May 18, 2021?
Yes.
Okay. Were you at the Belvedere post office that day?
Yes, I was.
Okay. What were you? Who were you with?
I had arrived with my wife and my daughter.
Okay. What was the purpose for going to the post office?
We were there to deliver some mail and to check our P.O. box.
Okay. Did you go into the post office with them?
Not initially.
Okay. What?
I initially waited in the car. I did enter to check the P.O. box, but I had forgotten what box number it was, so then I went back to the car and waited.
Okay. Did you eventually come back into the post office?
Eventually I did.
Why did you do that?
My daughter had called me into the post office because they were experiencing a problem.
Okay. Did you film while you were in the post office?
I did.
Did you go to the post office that day with the intention to film?
Not at all.
Okay. Why did you start filming?
Well, as I said, my wife and my daughter were encountering a problem regarding some dispute over masks, and so I went in there and was going to aid them, and I knew that I had a right to record, and so that's exactly what I did.
Okay.
To record the event.
And the post office is a public building to the best of your knowledge?
Objection, Your Honor. That's a legal definition.
I'll overrule it as it relates to his belief or understanding as to whether it was a public building.
I.
Go ahead.
Should I answer, Judge?
Sure.
I believe it to be public, yes.
By Mr. Jenks.
Okay. After you were filming, did any of the workers have any problems with you filming?
I was asked by originally one of the employees that recording was. I was told that recording was not allowed.
What was your response?
I responded that it was by saying I'm not going to stop.
Okay.
By implying that I'm not going to stop.
Did you go anywhere in the post office that wasn't publicly accessible?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Did you have any conversations with any patrons of the post office?
None.
What area of the post office did you stay?
I stayed in the lobby mainly. In the foyer.
Okay, do you remember having a conversation with a Stephanie Johnson?
Yes.
What was your interaction with her?
Basically, she engaged me by first telling me that I wasn't allowed to record. And, as I said, my response was, "That's not going to happen." And do you want me to respond to what happened afterwards? Thereafter it was really about whether or not she was going to call the police, and I was.
So, did she inform me she was going to call the police?
She had asked my wife if she wanted the police called, and originally I had said yes, call the police. I was referring to the postal police though, not the local police, and then I had a change of mind because I realized the police was very busy, so I told her not to call the police.
Do you remember making a comment to her about being educated?
I do.
What was that comment exactly?
That was in reference to recording.
Okay.
Being allowed.
Okay, did you mean that in any threatening way?
Not at all.
Okay.
Of course not, I had my daughter with me.
So, what do you mean by being educated as far as the recording?
As far as the First Amendment right to record.
Okay.
And as far as Poster 7 for news purposes.
At that time after you made that comment, did she seem scared or intimidated by it at all?
Not at all.
At any time did she come? Where was she located when you made that comment?
She was behind the counter, several feet away, probably I'd say 20 feet away.
And after you made that comment, and she was behind the counter, at any time, did she ever come outside into the lobby?
She never did.
Okay, at that point, did you leave the post office?
At which point?
At
the point that.
After you made that comment to you, did you decide to stay in the post office?
I stayed because she had mentioned about calling the cops.
Okay.
So I stuck around.
So were you waiting for the police?
I was. I didn't want to leave the scene if she allegedly potentially thought there was some kind of activity that was illegal, so I just waited around.
And how long did the police eventually show up?
Geez, it was several minutes.
Okay, and do you remember making contact with one of the officers?
I don't remember making any contact with the officer.
Contact as far as conversation or just approaching?
No.
Okay.
No.
Do you remember how many officers showed up?
Initially one.
Okay.
Came in through the door.
Do you remember which officer that was?
Officer Brox.
Officer Brox. And what was your interaction with her like, if you could describe it?
There was no conversation. She basically came in and just told me to leave the area.
Okay. Did you want to explain the situation to her?
I did. I absolutely did.
What was her response?
Get out, get out. They don't want you here.
Okay. And where were you at when she was telling you to get out?
I was in the lobby area.
Okay.
Near the entrance.
Did you get out?
I did.
Once you were outside, did you try and explain yourself any more to her?
I was attempting to converse with her, but she just kept repeating yes.
Okay. And you were filming this entire time?
I was.
Okay. And what was your interaction with her like once you got outside?
She was very agitated. She was very hyper, and not clear in her directives.
Okay. Did she ever tell you you were under arrest at any point?
She never did.
Okay.
Never.
Did she make physical contact with you?
She did.
Okay. And what happened when she made physical contact with you?
Well, she did make contact with me twice. The first time was she grabbed my arm, and that's when my daughter told me, that she was touching me. But the second time was when she reached for my arm and told me I was going to jail.
Did she tell you that you were going to jail if you didn't leave?
She did.
Objection, leading.
She did.
Hang on. There is an objection. It is, but I'll allow it. I mean, at this point, it's already been on the video that we've seen.
Okay.
So, I'll overrule it. And I think he's answered. He did so, or she did so if you want to ask the next question.
Hi, Mr. Jenks.
Were there any other officers outside at this point?
Yes.
Do you remember which officers those were?
Yeah, so it was Officer Reese and Officer Burillo.
Okay, after Officer Brox made physical contact with you the second time, did the other officers make contact with you as well?
They did.
Okay, and what happened when they made contact with you?
Well, as soon as Officer Brox grabbed my arm and told me I was going to jail, I immediately gave my phone to my daughter, or attempted to give my phone to my daughter, and they just kind of rushed on me, and I had no idea what they wanted me to do because they gave no directives. They didn't say I was under arrest, and all I knew I was on my knees and then pushed to the ground and I braced myself from hitting the floor.
Okay, after you were on the ground, did you comply?
I did.
Okay, did you?
I put my hands behind my back.
Put your arms behind your back?
I did.
Okay, were you trying to resist at all?
I never was.
Okay,
That was never my intent.
okay. I have no further questions, Judge.
State any cross.
Yes, briefly, please.
Cross-examination by Ms. Babcock's Poole.
Mr. Wigginton, you said, outside she kept repeating, and then you trailed off. By she, we're talking about Officer Brox.
Yes, Officer Brox. She kept repeating like confusing directives, like I didn't.
She kept repeating, get off the property, correct?
No. She kept repeating you're going to go to jail. She said I'm going to remove you. She kept just repeating different verbiage.
Okay. Thank you. And,
But that was one of them.
yeah, when she told you to leave, did you leave?
I was trying to secure the officer's badge, yes, but I did leave, yes.
Okay. And Officer Brox gave you her badge number, correct?
Well, I attempted to leave anyways.
Okay. Did Officer Brox give you her badge number?
She did.
And did she tell you to leave again?
I don't recall. I think she did.
Okay. And then you kept asking for different officers' information, correct?
I did.
And Officer Brox told you there would be a report, correct?
I believe she did.
And then you walked back toward the front door to engage with Detective Barillo, correct?
I didn't, yeah, I didn't.
Okay.
You're not.
Just answer the question.
You're not allowing me to answer, but yeah.
It's yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. And you said you were recording poster 7 for news purposes.
No, I didn't say I was recording poster 7 for news purposes.
Okay. What were you doing for news purposes?
For news purposes, I was recording the event that was occurring, which was the issue with the masks.
Okay. What news?
The story was the masks.
Which news agency were you going to report that to?
Which news agency? I was doing it as a freelancer. I was going to put it out to the internet.
Okay. All right. No additional questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Attorney Jenks, any redirect?
Redirect examination by Ms. Babcock's Poole.
So you're aware there were 2 separate videos taken from your phone
Yes.
of the incident, and the first video is taken by yourself?
Yes.
And who took the second video?
My daughter.
Okay, now, there was a small lapse in those 2 videos. Are you aware of that?
Yes.
How much time went by between?
Objection, Your Honor. This is outside the scope.
I'll allow it.
Okay.
I think it's...
Hi, Mr. Jenks.
How much time went by between the first video ending and the second video starting?
Well, we timed it with the video from the post office, and the video that we actually took, and it was approximately about 6 seconds, about 4 to 6 seconds, gap.
And during that time, did you resist at all?
Never.
Okay.
All I tried to do is give
Objection, Your Honor.
my phone to my daughter.
There's no question pending.
I guess the cat's out of the bag at that point, okay?
No further questions, Judge.
Okay, Mr. Wigginton, you may step down. Thank you. Counsel, any additional witnesses?
Just briefly, I'll call his daughter, Trinity.
Okay. Calling TW, all right. Trinity, you are still under oath, okay?
Okay.
Do you understand? Okay. So come back around. Watch your step.
Trinity. A witness herein, having been previously duly sworn, was further examined and testified as follows. Redirect examination by Mr. Jenks.
Calling your attention back to May 18th of 2021, do you remember taking a video with your father's phone that day?
Yes.
Okay. And was he recording before you were?
Yes.
Okay. How did you come to record?
He had to flip me the phone because the officers did not allow him a chance to give it to me, and I reached down and picked it up and turned it on.
Okay. And you're aware that there was 2 different videos taken on the phone of the incident?
Yes.
Okay. How much time elapsed between the first video and the second video?
About 4 seconds.
Okay. Did you ever see your dad resist arrest that day?
Objection.
No.
Your Honor. That's a legal question, not appropriate for this witness.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I think that calls for a legal conclusion.
Okay. Sounds good.
I, Mr. Jenks.
Did you see your father pull away from the police?
Leading Your Honor.
I'll overrule that. I'll let her answer.
No.
You can answer that question.
Okay.
I, Mr. Jenks.
Did you see your father fall to the ground?
They pushed him.
Okay. Did he comply
Objection.
with what the officers were telling him to do?
Objection, Your Honor. Outside the scope of what the witness can answer. Comply is a legal term.
I don't believe it's illegal. I mean, it's used legally, but it's...
I'll let her answer. I'll overrule. She can answer that.
Yes, I did see him comply.
I, Mr. Jenks.
Okay.
No further questions.
State any cross.
Cross-examination by Ms. Babcock's Poole.
Trinity, why did you start recording your dad?
Because I was worried about what the cops were going to do to him.
What did you plan to do with that video?
I didn't know, at that time.
Objection. Relevance, Judge.
I'll overrule it.
I'll withdraw the question, Your Honor. I'll withdraw it, Your Honor.
Okay.
No additional questions.
Okay. Any redirect based.
No, Judge.
All right. Trinity, you may step down. Thank you. Attorney Jenks, any additional witnesses?
No, Judge. We rest.
Okay. At this time, defense rests. State, do you wish to call any witnesses in rebuttal?
I do not, Your Honor. Thank you.
I believe then that concludes the proofs. Are both sides prepared to give closing arguments?
I'm ready.
I'm also ready, Your Honor.
Okay. We'll start then with the state.